once that role is primary in your life, then the rest of our relationship and roles become relatively secondary. And that makes acting in those other roles so much more easier. What is the purpose of the prayer? Purpose is to help us achieve the objective desire, but most importantly, the purpose is to obtain mental clarity. And at the very end, when you continue doing the prayers with intense concentration and total devotion, the prayer helps us gain the kind of maturity so that we become qualified to receive the spiritual knowledge. That maturity teaches us our relationship and, for that matter, the exact identity with the Lord. We realize our true inherent nature, and that is Satchidananda. What kind of prayers are there? There are three kinds of prayers. One is a physical prayer, that is kaik. That is in the form of a ritual that you perform, the pujas and archanas you do upstairs, or the prayers that you perform at home before you set out to your daily chores. The second kind of prayers are the vachik, and that's the prayers that we sing before we start the studying. That is oral, in the form of bhajan, kirtan, chanting the mantras, stotras, those are vachik. And perhaps the most important are the mental prayers, which are manasik, and that is in the form japa. Of all the prayers, Sri Krishna, as we learn in the Gita, most importantly is japayati. Japa is the most important one, where you jasmanno dvijate loko, lokanno dvijate ya. You're not disturbing anybody else, and your mind is so intensely concentrated, you're not disturbed with anything else. It doesn't matter, the train is going by the side, or the windmill is blowing in your face, still you are at intense peace. What are the results of the prayer? Any action produces reaction, results. It has a result in the form of immediate result called drishtaphala, and unrecognized result called unseen, adrishtaphala. Immediate, and I experienced an umpteen number of times, is inner comfort by acknowledging one's limited capabilities and accepting a power several times higher than yours. So once you bow down in total devotion and accept and recognize the presence of a superpower, and I don't mean United States, supreme power, supreme Lord, then we feel comfort that you have prayed, you have communed with the superpower, supreme power, and even though capabilities are limited, like Arjuna felt comfortable that Sri Krishna was at his side, Sri Krishna was in his sight, you have that comfort and you acknowledge your limitations. Also, the immediate result is we become objective about the true situation in our life, where despite all our efforts and the duration of time that you continue those efforts, we recognize the outcome is outside your control, so you accept that fact. And by praying to that all-knowing source, who you are making on your side, frees us from the anxiety regarding the expectation of results. We accept the fact that only thing that I have on my side is to work hard and work continuously. But those are the immediate results. What are the unseen results? Unseen results are Adrishtafala. It's called subtle result. It can be called Punya. In English, poor classic translation is credit. Of course, that's difficult to get these days. But to me, the most important thing is grace. That is what it is. Which continues to accrue at a much better rate than the interest that we get from the banks this day, right? Maithili? Yes. And that continues to continue to accrue at the compounded interest rate, which is significantly greater. And that accrued grace comes in the form of a comfortable situation in this life or the lives afterwards. When one prays for success, quotes unquote, the accrued grace of punya helps neutralize the obstacles that most of us really don't foresee. Grace may not assure a success, but trust me, without that grace, the outcome that you have received would have been far worse. Reminds me of a story. They're two dear friends, but two totally different attitudes in their life. They would always go for a walk or do lots of fun things together. But there's one young man among those two. As soon as he saw the temple, he took the time out and went inside the temple, did his prayers, came out and joined his friend, who said, forget it, that's not my cup of tea. Two different personalities. But amazing as it may seem, I'm sure through your personal experiences you know that despite different behaviors and attitudes, we still can become close friends, so that's not a problem. So one day it so happened they went out on a walk and the temple came along in Maple Grove and he went inside, did the prayers, and the other guy said, I'm going to keep on going, catch up with me. The guy who went to the temple and came out, as he came out, he was bit or struck by a scorpion. And the guy who continued to walk away from the temple without stopping by found a krugerrand, a gold coin, on the street and pocketed it. This guy had a scorpion bite, came limping along, complaining about the severe pain and discomfort, whereas this guy was gloating over his good fortune of having received a gold coin. And amongst them they said, this is just not fair. And the guy who never stopped at the temple said, see, I told you, it doesn't help. See what happened? What kind of thing you got when you went to the temple? And continue arguing, laughing, shouting. They came across a wise man and they stopped him. He said, we have a question. This is what happened. Can you explain to us? He said, okay boys, sit down. Let me look at you. Asked their birth dates, time, the place. He said, no, there's absolutely no injustice there at all. The young man who was bit by the scorpion was supposed to die today with being bit by a cobra. And his prayers over a period of time resulted in the divine grace where he got away with the scorpion bite and he's continuing to live. Whereas the young man who found a krugerrand was destined to get a huge truck full of treasure trove, and he ended up getting a small Krugerrand. The story is very clear by itself. So you should not look at the outcome by itself and try to correlate exactly why it is so, because it is a continuation of accumulation of sigma actions as we have taught. Now, who does the prayers? That's the last part of the discussion. There are 4 different kinds of people who do the prayers. The first group of people who do the prayers are called Artha. Artha are the people who remember the God or remember the Lord only during the crisis and difficulties in life. As soon as the things settle down, all the successes and wonderful things that happen in their lives, they take credit for themselves. Yeah, I worked hard. I got success. I got promotion. I got more money. But any time there was a difficulty, the first place they would go would be the temple. Like stopping at the Hanuman temple on Saturday when the exam was there. Before the exams, the visits to the temple would increase in frequency. That's the Artha. The second group of students are Artharthi. That means a religious person is aware of the presence of God, but everything that he does in the form of prayer for a particular purpose so that he or she would receive some follow in return. So that prayer is kamya prayer, expecting something in return, like Satyanarayana Puja. We're doing it so that you'll get certain benefit from it. Otherwise, their attitude is not different than Artha, except they accept the presence of God. But again, puja is only done for a specific return. The third group of people who do the prayers are called Jignyasus. Those are the people who do the prayers in order to get the moksha, the liberation. And moksha is really freedom from unhappiness. That's what you're looking for. Even though the moksha is a desirable desirable goal for everyone in life, only the Jignasu recognize that the knowledge as the means to achieving it. He recognizes that you gain knowledge is essential in order to reach that particular goal. And so his prayers are primarily to have the inner growth and maturity, and for the sake of gaining knowledge, nothing else, just gaining knowledge. That is Jignasu. You can use the term Jignasu or Moksharthi if you want to call it. And the fourth group of people are called Jnani. Artha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Jnani. These are the wise people who know their identity with the Lord. And Jnani's prayer is an expression of wisdom, and that's considered the highest form of prayer. And when the prayer is done by that Jnani, he offers all the phalas, drishta, back to Lord. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu, at the end we'll always offer it back, having understood the relationship with the Lord. That is Jnani. So Artha, Artharthi, Jignasu, and Jnani. And as I mentioned to you, and I won't belabor that particular point, there are 3 things which are essential in order to invoke the unknown factor is prayatna, kala, and daiva. And that's exactly, daiva is the grace that we alluded to. So the person who is sensitive and acknowledges the presence of Lord sees the third and the critical factor, daivam, and that's why he performs the prayers. And on that note, let's start with Gita Dhyanam and then discussion. So that was the question based upon why do we pray any time before we undertake anything. पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितान् भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवत् गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायत पत्र नेत्र येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः अनुष्टुप् प्रपन्न पारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं मात् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोण तथा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामपि कर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणदधी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरम् हरिकथा सम्बोधना बोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरहै पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयते मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुत स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थित मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। Let's sing the first few verses that we studied. Dhritarashtra uvacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samavetaye Yutsavah Mamakah Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudam Duryodhanastada Acharyam upasangamya Raja vachanam abravit Pashyaitam Pandaputranam Acharyam mahatim chamum Vyudham Drupada-putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata Atra Shura Maheshwasa Dhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudhano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharataha. This is a new one, but let's sing. Drishtaketushchetinana Kashirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kuntibodascha Shaikrascha Narapungavaha. He is continuing the guiding order on the Pandava side. He says Drishtaketu, Shekitana, and the king of Kashi, who is a man of great valor, Purujit, Kuntibhoja, Shaitya, the most exalted amongst the men. That's the translation. Now, who is Drishtaketu? Drishtaketu is son of Shishupal. Now, Shishupal was a cousin of Shri Krishna. That means Shri Krishna, Shishupal's mother was Shri Krishna's father's sister. So, paternal aunt, if you want to call it. And I won't go into the details of the story. I love to tell stories, but otherwise we won't get the subject matter done. When the child was born, with all the problems that the child had, I think had 4 arms and 4 legs, but that's the story goes on. And it was decided, it was found out that he will be harmed by, he will be killed by one of the individuals. And it was recognized it will be Shri Krishna who will be killing him. And since he had respect for her aunt, his aunt, he promised her that he would not do it at least to a certain time. So till the time he completes 100 bad things in his life. So that was the promise that was given. And after Shishupal had to be killed, he put Drishtaketu on the throne because he was a totally different individual than his father. And Drishtaketu also had a sister, and her name was Karenumati. And the handful of beautiful women during the Mahabharata that is described, Draupadi was one of them, and Karenumati was one of them. And she was married to the most handsome Pandavas, Nakula. So that was Nakula's wife. So that's how the connection is. And he also was one of the 7 captains of the Pandava army, Drishtaketu. Chekidana was a leader of the Vrishti army, which was connected with Shri Krishna's Yadav Kula, so he was a leader of that. And he got Krupacharya unconscious, but he was killed by Duryodhana in the war. Kashi Raja was a dear friend of Yudhishthir, and he came at the time of Abhimanyu's wedding, the connection shows. Purujit, Kunti Bhoja are the brothers of Kunti. So those are mamas of Pandavas. So they joined it, and they were, both of them were killed by Dronacharya in the war. But Kunti Bhoj was one of the stronger of those two brothers. So when there is a certain arrangements of the army that is made, so when they made a Krauncha view, Krauncha, where there is a Kraunch Pakshi, so kind of bird, the eye of that Kraunch was Kunti Bhoj. He was an integral, critical part of that. And when they had a Makara viewer, he was the back leg of the Makara, so he was important in both those situations. And if you remember, Abhimanyu will come up later, where the Chakravyuh is a different kind. So these are some of the people that are mentioned in this verse. I thought really important to recover Kunti Bhoj. And Shaibya was, he was married to Yudhishthir's daughter. So I'm just giving you the connections how the family members come. And he was one of the bravest. So when I mentioned Kunti Bhoja was the eye and the leg in Makar and eye in the crown, the one who sent both of them was the Shaibya. And that's why Shaibya is called most exalted amongst the men. So these are some of the qualities of this. And the reason I'm mentioning these names, they might become boring for some people, is because it gives you historical connections. If you don't have the connection, then you don't quite understand what exactly the description is. He continues right here. Yudhamanyascha vikranta uttama ujascha viryavan saubhadro draupadeyascha sarva eva maharatha. The powerful Vikranta, Sudhamanyu, Uttamaujaha, a man of great strength. Then son of Subhadra, Abhimanyu, Saubhadra, Draupadi's sons, Draupadeyascha, all men of great valor, Maharathi, you understand, that means they can fight 100,000 bowmen one after another. Atirathi are the one who fight simultaneously. Now who are these? Now the two famous Maharathis during the Pandavas' time were Yudhamanyu and Uttamaujas. And they are Maharathi, you understand the definition of that. And there are so many wars that I know in front of me, but I won't bore you. They were involved in killing a lot of people on the opposition side. They were one of the survivors, but during the toxic behavior of Ashwatthama at the end of the war, they were killed in the tent. Then, who is Saubhadra? Saubhadra's other name is Veera Bhimanyu, son of Arjuna and Subhadra. And just like a previous life when you talk about, as Narayan came in the form of Shri Krishna in this life, so he is the son of moon called Somaputra. So he said that this is important that you get reincarnated in this particular yuga. I want to send my son to help you. Like the moon wanes after a certain time, he will not live too long. But on his last day of his life, he will show the kind of bravery that will wipe out 1/4 of the opposition army to help Nara is Arjuna, Narayana is Shri Krishna. And that is exactly what was recommended and suggested by Moon. So it's a Somaputra. And what is Abhimanyu? Is no. Bhi means bhaya, that means being afraid. So Abhi is the one who is not afraid. And Manyu means one who has pride. That means there's nothing wrong being proud about what you do. as long as we recognize that it comes by Prayatna, Kala and Daiva. As long as you recognize that, that's fine. So he was the most favorite of the youngsters in the Pandava family because of his accomplishment. He was trained with great care and love by his own father, where he learned all the 4 different Chaturanga of the fighting skills and all the 10 different arts which were Dashavidha were taught by Arjuna. And he had a special skill which is described in Sanskrit called Utsarpana and Prasarpana. That Utsarpana, that means zoom, you're able to go at a tremendous speed of lightning. And Prasarpana is just like you're the tanko, you're able to hit it, you're able to hit anything and shatter it through. And the famous story you know about the Chakravyuha, and again I tell many times the sound waves do make an impact, and that story, to make it briefly, was Sri Krishna was teaching Arjuna how to break the Chakravyuha, and at that time Arjuna's wife, or Sri Krishna's sister Subhadra, was there with Abhimanyu in the belly, in the womb. And halfway through the discussion, she went inside to bring a cup of tea outside. And so he was able to hear how to break the Chakravyuha, but he did not know how to get out of the Chakravyuha. And during the war, he had to jump in because Arjuna was busy fighting on one side, and that was the purpose there. And then Abhimanyu had to get in, because at least he knew how to get in. And he was hoping that Arjuna will complete the work for other people who come in to get him out, but which he did not. And I've got a long list of Kaurava warriors that he killed during that time. But even Bhishma and Drona are described in Mahabharata praising Abhimanyu's skill and bravery during that particular time. And he was killed unethically, where the typical war is done only during the daytime and done from face to face after connecting with the person you're fighting with. Whereas he was attacked from 360 degrees around, and after his death, Jayadratha kicked him on his head, and that was reported by Walter Cronkite in the evening news. And then subsequently Arjuna had to take a special vow. We'll come to that a little later. So that is as far as Saubhadra, that means son of Subhadra, that is Abhimanyu. Then Draupadi. Draupadi had 5 husbands, and she bore a son from each of the 5 brothers. The first one was Prativindya. He fought Shakuni and defeated him. And again, all of them survived, but killed by Ashwatthama in the tent at the end. And it was done after certain ceremonies were performed to make him strong. That's called Prativindya, was the name given to him. Bhima's son was Sutta Soma, and after 1,000 special Samayags were performed, that's why his name was Sutta Soma. And he on the opening day, he fought against Vikarna, and again he was killed the same way after the war. The famous one was Shrutakarma, Arjuna's son. He was Maharathi, one of the Maharathis. And Shrutakarma, that means he was born after some magical works were done. So it was the story that was told, that's how the word Shrutakarma came about. Then Nakula's son was Shatanika, and Shatanik is an old famous king. That name was picked up by Nakula. And Sadeva's son was Shrutasena, and he was born in front of the goddess of Kritika, so Agni, so he was a follower of the fire god. So all 5 of them were killed after the war was over, after having survived it, by the Ashwatthama. Continuing here, अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये
तानि बोधत्विजोत्तम
तानि बोधत्विजोत्तम
नायका मम सैन्यस्य
नायका मम सैन्यस्य
संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि मे.
संज्ञार्थं ब्रवीमि.
Having told the Pandava side, whereas, O learned amongst the twice born, Vijottama, please take note of those who are important amongst ourselves, the leaders of my army. I mention them in order to introduce to you. And he continues, Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च
Krupascha Samitinjaya
कृपश्च समिञ्जया
Ashwathama Vikarnascha
अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च
Somadaktirjayadratha.
सौमदत्तयज्ञरतः.
Bhavan, your honor, you are one of them. Bhishma, Karna, Krupa, and always, Krupa who is always Samitinjaya, that is always victorious in war. Ashwathama, Vikarna, Somadatti, and Jayadratha. So he is telling warriors on his side. And he is trying to buskify Dronacharya, calling him honor, and he's starting to Dronacharya first instead of talking with Bhishmacharya first. And Duryodhana went even further down, taunting and criticizing Dronacharya because he thought he was not giving his best subsequently down the road. And he enraged Dronacharya to such an extent that he took a vow that I'm going to kill Yudhishthira on that particular day. That was the day when Narova Kunjara came, but that's a different story. Then we'll talk about Bhishmacharya in a minute. Then Karna, Vikarna, and Ashwathama, and Jayadratha. Now, a few highlights about Dronacharya. He was the teacher of Pandavas and Kauravas. His father's name was Bharadwaj, and his mother was an Apsara, her name was Vritachi. And he learned of course archery and everything from Parshuram. His favorite disciple was Arjuna and had only one son, Ashwathama. But he was extremely qualified, as much qualified as Parshurama himself, except he had some drawbacks of not having enough personal pride and confidence and capacity to stand up. That was the reason. I like Parshurama because that's where I grew up, just 2 miles away from his place. But the second thing is, he was able to defeat the opponent, Shapadapi, Sharadapi. That means Sharadapi, that means arrow and bow, that means by fighting physically. And Shapadapi by Veda Mantra. So he is able to, he was master of Vedas as well as he was master of archery and other ways of fighting. I won't bore you with the story of Ekalavya, except just remember it. And when all the students graduated, Bhishma gave him a large donation in the form of golds and diamonds and gems and pearls and clothes. But he was not quite happy. But he asked his graduating students, to go and defeat Drupada. And he was the king of the kingdom called Panchala, and that's called Panchali, that is Draupadi. And he defeated him, brought him back, and of course he kept half of it and returned back the rest of it. And his criticism, as I mentioned to you, was not even able to stand up, and that applies to a certain extent Bhishma too. And Kumud and myself mentioned in the early, Arthasya Purusho Dasaha, that means in the Kaurava's court, they didn't stand up when Draupadi was being humiliated. So that's what happens when they have been kind of softened up in their behavior by the constant gifts and promotions by the kings. And of of course, I mentioned to you before, he was killed by Drishtadyumna, who son of Drupada, who himself was Dronacharya's son, so Dronacharya's student. So when he was born, it was recognized that he was born to kill Dronacharya. And even though Dronacharya knew about that fact, when the disciple comes up to the teacher, bows down, prostrates before him, and requests the knowledge, and if he is qualified, it is the duty of the teacher to impart that knowledge, which he did with pleasure, including all the possible mantras that he could give. There's a long list of Pandava warriors that he killed, which I would not bore you with. Talking about Bhishmacharya, and I'm sure you know the story of Vasus. Does anyone know the story of Vasus? There were 8 Vasus, the mischievous being due, and they fell in love with a Kamadhenu called Nandini, which was in the ashram of Vasishtha. And like there's a tendency of politicians to give away somebody else's money to somebody else, they gave that Nandini Kamadhenu to one of their friends till when Vasishtha found it, he didn't quite like it, understandably, because she was the main food giver for the whole ashrama and the whole retinue. So he cursed him. Now this is something for everyone to reflect. I won't make a comment. These were exalted celestials. The curse was that they will be born as in the human mortal world. You understand what I mean? So you understand why the life sometimes is very painful. And anybody can ask for forgiveness. They recognize that they have done something wrong, ask for forgiveness. And the kind person always forgives, except he said, well, 7 of you will be able to come briefly on this earth, but one of you who is the main leader of the group will have to lead the entire life on the mortal world. So because of your all other qualities, he will be respected, he will be successful, recognize all positive things, but he'll have to go through the sufferings as a human being. So, and that turned out to be the Vishnu. And as you know, all those 7 brothers were born of Ganga, who was requested to be their mother. The father was Shantanu, and when the 8th child was about to be deposited in the water, Shantanu could not take it anymore. And that's what Mother Goddess Ganges was waiting for anyway, and she said, fine, I'll follow your word, this young boy will survive. But as my mother, it's my job to train this boy. So she takes him, and when he's ready, I'll bring him back. So he learned from Vasishtha all the Vedas. He learned Astravidya from Parshuram. He learned politics and diplomacy from Shukracharya. And on his 16th birthday, before getting the driver's license, he was seen using the arrows to create the dams in the river. And Shantanu was surprised to find out that this young man had that kind of special skill, and personality. Some just stand out that he was such a glowing personality that he just fell in love with this boy. At which time Ganga appeared in front of Shantanu and handed over the son to him. And he immediately converted him into his confidence till such time that he longed for another beautiful woman called Satyavati. And Bhishma, that means most terrible vow. He took the vow that not only will I not accept the position of the king, but would not get married, so that there will be no offspring who will yearn for the kingdom as well. So Satyavati's children could have the kingdom. Idea behind it, the father would be happy. And the story continues, and After Shantanu died, he put Chitrangada in the throne. Very powerful, bright, talented young man who was killed in a war against Chitrangada, who was one of the Gandharvas, and he also died on the Kurukshetra. Then he put Vichitravari on the throne, who after 8 years of marriage did not have any children. He died of tuberculosis. There was no streptomycin at that time. And subsequently, Vichitravirya was married to Ambika and Ambalika. Amba was also brought in, the eldest one, returned back to the king of Kashi because she had a love with Shailya, so Bhishma allowed her to go back, except she subsequently in the next life became Shikandi. That's another story. Through the Niyog system, he managed to have 3 children from, then that became Dhritarashtra, blind, Pandu with anemia, and Vidura with all the qualities. So that's what the story as far as is concerned, and he died on the 10th day of the Mahabharata war, but he was able to survive till the time he wanted to die. And that blessing came from his father Shantanu because of his Bhishma Pratigna. So he was able to prolong his life on the bed of arrows, where thirst being quenched by the water created by the arrow of Arjuna. But the key part about it, I think, if you get a chance to read Bhishma's commentary during those times when he's on bed of arrows, is magnificent, because that's where he talks about the entire philosophy, from politics to rituals to the fascinating dialogues between various deities, from Shiva, Parvata, Ram, all those things were fascinatingly described, and this is something that we should do. And as we were alluding last time, that is how the Vishnu Sahasranam also is described at that particular time. The key is there is a dialogue between Vyasa and Maitreya, there is a dialogue in Shandili and Sumana, there is a dialogue with Uma and Maheshwar, and again one more time Shiva and Parvati. So this is something that when we have a chance, we'll have a chance to talk about. The fun part about it is that the dialogues talk about the importance of Grihasthashram as well as Sannyasa when he's talking with Vyasa and Maitreya. Those are the kind of things which are very important for us to study down the road. But again, I can go on for Bhishma for a long time, but this because he is the central character of Mahabharata. Other one he talked about is giving the orders Karna, and again everybody knows the story of Karna's birth coming from the sun, and he remained loyal to Duryodhana because when his heritage was questioned, and he would not be taught by Dronacharya unless he came from a good family, which was unfortunate, and I hope we don't do that anymore. As long as you're born as a human being, to me, everybody is the same. At that time, Duryodhana offered him the kingship of the kingdom of Anga, made him an Angaraja, and allowed him to learn from Dronacharya. But again, the key was he was totally loyal to Duryodhana all the time. He knew the secret of his birth. Krishna came and told him. Kunti came to tell him. At the same time, he requested Krishna not to tell anybody else till the time the war was over, because he had taken the vow of killing Arjuna. And of course, the story, if you remember, the story of Parshuram and Karna, where because Dronacharya taught Brahmastra to Arjuna and also to Ashwatthama, son and his favorite disciple. And he did not teach it to Karna because I said, your qualities are not adequate enough to learn this powerful astra. So he said, okay, the other person who knows is Parshurama, because that's the one who taught you in the first place. So goes to Parshurama, and Parshurama had vowed, having killed kings in an appropriate ethics 21 times over around the times, he said only teach the Brahmins. So he said, I came from the Bhargav Kula, continued to learn. He was very pleased with the students' quick pickup of knowledge. He taught him the Brahmastra. And one day when he was taking a rest in his lap, When he got up, he realized there was a blood all over, and this guy had not cried. He said, there's no way in the world a Brahmin can tolerate that pain, and I can attest to that. So he said he can't be a Brahmin, and he tells his heritage of Sutaputra because he did not know any other way. And then he said, well, knowledge will stay with you, except it will not help you at the time when you need the most. That's the most unfortunate part. That's a lack of grace. Anytime you do cheating, lying, that's what exactly the outcome is. And to me, that's a symbol. If you get something by unethical means, it will not be useful to you when you need the most. And Krupacharya is one of the 7 Chiranjivas in the world. And just in case you are interested, it goes like Ashwathama, Balir Vyaso, Hanumanscha, Vibhishana, Krupa Parushamascha, Saptaite Chiranjivina. So Ashwathama, like a soul which is unhappy. Bali Pratipada, Kartikshwata Pratipada, Vyasa, Hanuman, Vibhishana, brother of Ravana, Krupa, again the same unhappy soul, Parshuram, these are the 7 Chiranjivina. Semicolon, however, there's one added verse to that. It says, Saptaitan Smarem Nityam. Remember all 7 of them. Markandeyam Tathashtamam. So that's the 8th one. Jive Varshashatam Sopi Sarva Vyadhi Nivarjita. So who remembers Markandeya as the 8th one will live for 100 years and Sarva Vyadhi Nivarjita, without any Vyadhi in the life. So the point there is that 7 Chiranjivas are described. But remember, Markandeya, who was supposed to die on the 16th birthday, was able to live for 100 plus years because of devotion. So when you remember the Markandeya, the Varsali whosoever remembers Markandeya lives for 100 years. That's not the point. One who remembers how Markandeya achieved those 100 years lives for 100 plus years without a pain or limitation. Why is Krupacharya called Krupacharya? I'm glad you asked that question. Now, when they were born, as I told you, Krupacharya was, father was Sharadvaj from Gautama Gotra, and a sage, that means obviously nothing in his pocket. His sister's name was Krupi, who was married to Dronacharya. But they are called Krupa and Krupi because when they were kids, had nothing in their house, it was Shantanu who brought them up. So they grew up in a palace with the help of the king Shantanu, who took care of them and brought them up, gave them the education and nurtured them. And because of the Krupa, purely out of love, he brought these 2 young kids up. That's why they are called Krupa and Krupi. That's how the name Krupacharya comes about. Education was basically Gautam Rishi was his teacher, and of course he learned Dhanurveda and everything from Shantanu himself. And Dronacharya was his teacher for holding the sword, and he worked when there was a Rajasi Yajna done by Yudhishthira before they were sent to the forest, doing certain duties. He was one of the guys who did give a positive advice to Yudhishthira. And he even tried his best to persuade Ashwathama from behaving inappropriately before all 3 of them went on totally berserk after the war. But at the end he still joined, and he ended up being a wandering soul just like Ashwathama was. And finally I'll conclude with Ashwathama because that's the batting order here. He is son of Dronacharya and Krupi. And his personality is a combination of Shiva, gets angry very quickly, Yama, that means god of death because that's what he did. He was very used to getting tempted with small little things, Kama and Krodha. So these are some of the weaknesses on his part. And why is called Ashwathama? I'm glad you asked that question. Because when he was born, he made the sound, his crying, like a horse. It's called Uchchaishravaha. That means when he was born, he made that sound as if it was a horse who was making the sound by his mouth. And that is called Ashwatthama. So we have a tendency to use a name which is appropriate for the personality. That's how it came, Ashwatthama. Of course, he learned from Shastravidya from his father, and they were very poor. And if you remember, I mentioned earlier that he had to have a flour mixed with water as a milk, did not have that. Even though he competed with Arjuna, he respected him immensely. There was a mutual respect because the two of them had a special private coaching after the school was over. And he was defeated by Arjuna 6 times during the war. And at the end, he killed an umpteen number of people, as I mentioned to you. At the end, he totally lost control. And the 3 people I mentioned to you was Ashwatthama, Krupacharya, and Krutavarma. These are the 3 individuals, lost souls, who stayed on for a long time. And I don't want to bore you with that particular part of it. And, maybe one thing, after having killed all those people, he goes to the forest and Draupadi realizes what has happened. So she goes to Yudhishthira, and of course she's crying. What are you going to do about our entire retinue, our children being killed? Are you going to take it lying down? So Yudhishthira goes after Ashwatthama. And who is their counselor? Shri Krishna realizes that he still has in his quiver the Brahmastra. Brahmastra was not used by Arjuna in the war and was not used by Ashwatthama in the war. So if Yudhishthira goes and he starts fighting with Ashwatthama, Ashwatthama might use the Brahmastra. So he wakes up Arjuna, he says, you go because I'm going to come with you. So they throw Brahmastra at each other and it is nullified. If you have seen all Indian movies, you know how it gets nullified. But there was a certain amount of negative impact that he insisted on having, and Shri Krishna was very upset about it. He directed towards not only all the Pandavas, which he was able to prevent, but the fallout of that was killing the unborn dynasty from Pandavas. And at that time, Uttara, the daughter of Abhimanyu, was pregnant, and Parikshit was inside the womb. And Shri Krishna tried to persuade him to take thing back. And Ashwatthama was totally had gone crazy. There was no psychiatric ward at that time. So he could not be controlled. So when the baby was born, Shri Krishna had to do CPR and revive him. So Parikshit continued to live, even though he was born nearly dead at the time of birth. So Shri Krishna was both a doctor as well as a good warrior as well. So that's the story as far as Ashwatthama is concerned. And Vikarna, he mentioned about it. Vikarna was the youngest of the 100 Kauravas, but the only Kaurava to stand up in the court and against what Duryodhana was doing. And when the Draupadi was asking question, doesn't anybody in the court stand up and answer my question? Why am I being treated that way? Because I am not your slave. And Vikarna says that no, Yudhishthira has lost everything. He has lost all the kingdom. He got all the wealth. He did not put her as one of the choices for gambling. Duryodhana forced him to do that. So if it is done by coercion, that cannot be considered legal. So I would say absolutely not. He said, anything that has to be done, like Shri Krishna said, yuktahara viharasya, it has to be done in moderation. So he said, even the mrugaya, that is hunting done excessively, even the drinking done excessively, madirapan, even gambling done excessively as Duryodhana has done, Yuta Vidya, and uncontrolled other entities in life is totally unacceptable. And and that's called Dharma Brata. It's a big Vikarna speech in Mahabharata. So these are the famous people, and the fun part about it is that the person who cried the most when Vikarna died was the person who killed him. And that person who killed was Bhima. Bhima killed all 100 Kauravas. He said, Vikarna, I love you the most. But because I had taken the vow that I'm going to wipe out all the Kauravas, I'm doing it. But I'm so sorry that that had to be done. So, I mean, there was a kind of special love and hate relationship at that particular time. I'm going to stop at this stage. It's about 11:32. So, any questions or comments? Because this is, but it's important to know where they fall as far as the relationship of various warriors and Kauravas and Pandavas. So, we try to finish at least 4 quick verses, unless you want me to go through a couple more. They're just translations. What do you say about them? Yeah, okay. Just follow me. Anyeja bhava shura, madarthe tyakta jivita, nana shastra pahana, sarve yuddha visharada. And Duryodhana is describing all the other warriors and many other warriors, all experts in warfare, armed with many kinds of weapons, Nana Shastra Prarana, who have given up lives for my sake. Sarva Vidrisha Tyakta Jivita. This is a Freudian slip which happens in everybody's life. He did not say that these people, armed with so many weapons, are willing to give life for my sake. But he says, Tyakta Jivitaha. That means who have given up their lives for me already. That means by making a mistake, he was describing what is going to happen in the future. You'll find time and time again, you'll say something, and that's exactly what happens. It happens on a tennis court too. Sometimes you call a score, with the point is not being played, but you lose that point anyway because you already counted it. So when he says, Tyakta Jivitaha, it's a Freudian slip on the part of Duryodhana, and that's exactly what happened. He of course was meaning to say that willing to give up, and I don't think it was a deliberate mistake, but what I'm talking about is Daiva is uncanny. It comes out through Duryodhana's mouth, what's going to happen. He continues, Aparyaptam tu tasasmakam, aparyaptam tu tamasmakam, balam bhishmabhirakshatam, paryaptam tudamaitesham, balam bhimabhirakshatam. Astat asmakam aparyaptam. That means cannot be beat. The strength of our army, which is bigger than Pandava, 11 over 7 Akshayani, is well protected by Bhishma. That means Bhishma Abhirakshana, Balam, cannot be overwhelmed, defeated. That's aparyaptam. That means because it is protected by Bhishma, our army cannot be defeated. Whereas the strength of these people, Etesham, in front of us, even though protected by Bhima, can be overwhelmed. That means Bhima Abhirakshitam, Paryaptam. Paryaptam, that means can be overwhelmed. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yatha bhagamavasthita Bhishmamevabhirakshantu bhavantas sarva evahi. Now he's telling, may all of you, being stationed in your respective positions, protect Bhishma indeed. Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu. And the reason for it, typically the captain has to be protected. If the captain falls, the army is defeated. So since he is the captain, make sure that everybody works towards protecting our captain, who happens to be the Bhishma. And Bhishma being the oldest, most experienced, and the greatest warrior of his time. And as long as he was on his side, as long as he is still being the captain, he is not fallen, he was not going to lose. That's what he was basically talking about. And we'll talk about what Bhishma does, hearing what Duryodhana says next time, where he blows his horn saying that, yeah, thank you. I'm ready to fight, don't worry about it. So that's the next word that is coming up.